big Monday for us.
It certainly is.
It's the aftermath, and the dust has settled after Di and Nicola did our first live event.
Yay! I know, and we are really
And our next guest was present.
A roaring success.
I know, so we're thrilled. So the people who came to our event, a big thank you. It was such a huge, great,
Big
sort of
hug.
like uplifting, fun vibe, wasn't it?
It
Like,
was sensational.
Yeah.
There was so much
Hey.
connection between everybody.
Yes,
Because you guys were sort of talking out and everyone else was, but we were all sort of talking amongst ourselves as well, like, with our neighbours and
That's
we were having a
great.
hoot.
Is that when you were sitting down the front?
Yeah.
And did you wave your arms in
Oh,
the
I
air?
did.
Oh, it is love. Was that it or something like that?
Absolutely.
What is it?
No, it was Brian Wilson's one.
Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Yeah,
The song,
yeah.
everyone was singing, had their arms
It
in
was
the air.
so cute.
It was just
It was such a
stimulating,
cute
just
way to
getting the
start.
God
night
only
going.
knows, like
Yeah.
God
it's
only knows where I'd be without you. So
You know what?
that
It
set
was
the
so
tone,
much
I
fun.
think.
We had our guest speakers, and so we had like Alex Andrews who kicked it off. It was just fantastic, and she gave some great life advice about shining your light. And
I was listening to the guest speakers so much.
Yeah.
I was so engrossed in what they were saying. I went twice. I went, what's the running sheet? Who's next? What have I got to
It's
say?
also about
we
me.
didn't follow it at
I
all,
was
did
so
we?
I was
Yeah.
so lost in what they were saying.
Right.
And it was
That you
beautiful.
forgot you were hosting.
I think it was summarised pearls of wisdom as an aftermath of the interviews. And all the guests, including David the Medium, Roger Montgomery, Lisa McGuigan.
Lisa McGuigan did the
Yay.
wine game, and I heard it's so good. We've actually got a collaboration with our own wine label on it,
We do.
which is wonderful. So I think that a lot of the people that got a bottle to take home with them, and also we're actually further. We are going to be doing some like a bit of a promotion with it for our special fence lessons, which is really
It's very
good.
funny. It's a caricature of Nicola and Dada and just the history of the
And
body.
Lisa Walker from Air talked about joy and happiness, and
it was great.
And you and I had a little chat too, didn't we?
We had a chat about the potty and how it started and about life and
Friendship.
look, honestly, it was a total sellout. Which it's your first event. You're
Yes.
pretty vulnerable and going, oh,
Congrats.
God, like,
Yeah.
who's going to come? Will we sell enough tickets? You can't help. That's natural human reaction.
Yes.
But it was a total sellout. And honestly, so many people said to us, including UK, it was just the energy in the room.
It was just fantastic. So I think this is the first of many. We might even come down to Melbourne as well. So
we're definitely
on tour,
going.
which is good.
There you love it, Nicola. We might. I'm going. We will.
Yeah, we might.
I love
exactly.
Melbourne.
That's right.
So it's all
But
on.
it was just fantastic, and you listen to all those guest speakers on our potties. So just great. Now, Tiny, you were telling a little story about on the way
this
here.
morning,
Tell
I
me.
popped into. I had to get a pig set for my car, and I popped into a coffee shop, and I was there, and there was a whole lot of big tables, and I was only me, and I didn't want to take the big. But I thought there's two gorgeous tradies up in the end. I'll go. Do you mind if I sit here today? No, not at all. And so I sat there, and of course, me have a chat. Never. And I said to them, "Do you guys during your break?" Do you do phono? And they said, we do. So in essence, you go past a building site in morning tea or afternoon tea or lunch, and they're all chatting, laughing, sharing their stories. But now you go past, they're all on their phones. Same in a bus stop. Same, like you see someone at a train set, whatever. The point is, I guess I was saying to them is like, how sad, why don't you just break that habit and just sort of start grabbing your,
a good old
putting your phone
convo.
away. Exactly. And so we started chatting as a consequence, funny that. But it was really beautiful. Like one of them was sharing stories about, his child with anxiety and the other guy was interjecting about that in life and whatever. And I kept bringing it back, the consequence of phono. And it was really weird because this huge conversation took place. Like we're almost in tears, then we're laughing. And then he went, oh shit, like he's got to go back.
Sounds like the podcast.
Well, it was a bit. I said, "Where's bloody Nicola?" And then they stood up. They stood up to go, and I'm thinking, "Oh, they've heard enough." But he just went, "I feel so happy."
Did you put them onto over the back fence, Di?
I did. His brother-in-law has a potty, so we started chatting about.
Yes.
But I guess the moral to this whole story is just make a little effort. That's it. Doesn't take much. Just to unravel whatever's going on in your world, whatever that may be.
You know what? They're just simple reminders, and I think that we need to know that, and hear those ones every day about whatever it is, and certainly phones is one of the ones, So there's good and bad to everything, and it is when you put it away or sort of like consciously turn it off for a period of time. It's lovely. I do that when I walk with my dog Freddie.
Good girl.
And I love sometimes, and I'll listen to a podcast because it gives me joy. I also, it's a great way of learning different things there, and instead of reading, I like to exercise and do that. But then other times I actually purposely, I'm silent. And it's so beautiful. And I'm just sort of walking, and also, especially when I'm going, past Palm Beach and at night time and the moon's out, and it's just so lovely. And I'm hearing the sound of the ocean, and I'm walking with my dog, and I'm just going, gosh, I feel so happy. And it's just in my own sort of like Mother Nature's senses.
I told you about that. Someone we interviewed, Annabelle Abs, was it?
Well, Annabelle Abs is one. She
was talking at night how good it is for you to walk out and look at the stars. It can help you to sleep better.
Yes, that's true.
So I do it most nights. Even on winter nights, I go out and just stare at the stars.
Yeah, I go on my balcony.
I never got into depth about that other than I thought, wow, that's a great one. Another one was Sarah, the nutritionist. She said about smiling. If you wake up and you can't sleep, smile.
Smile, that's true. That's
Some of these things are always
when
interviews.
you turn the corner, even if you don't feel like smiling, if you just turn the corners of your mouth up into a slight smile, it's like a smiling meditation, because your brain doesn't recognize a false smile from a real smile. Wow. So even if you're feeling a little bit, just smile, and that releases serotonin in the brain.
Wow, that's
fascinating.
That's a little qigong.
That is fantastic. Now, listeners, the voice you are hearing, let me introduce you, is the beautiful and dynamic Kate Bell.
and beautiful is right.
That's so true. And you know what? We're so thrilled, really, to have you
I'm
here.
Thrilled to be
You're stunning and you're soulful. So let me introduce you, because I think most Aussies and people globally would probably know who you are, because you've been really...
maybe.
Yeah. Well, you have been. You've been modelling, and your career spans decades, and you've really worked with the biggest, most iconic brands globally. But you've also become a powerful voice for visibility and beauty in all its forms. Kate continues to front national campaigns, walk international runways, and challenge outdated ideas in fashion and beyond. And we recently met up at a private event where you were modelling at a friend's home, which was fantastic. As you've all heard that Kate was at our event as well. Kate is graceful, grounded, and full of insight. There's so much
Nicola,
more to discover about Kate, so welcome to the Backbeds.
Thank you, ladies, so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
I love that you said
that you're even
described
interested.
as soulful. Because you true. I mean, I met Kate 100 years ago. Don't you love it?
No,
What's
I
age?
get that.
What's age?
I get that often.
What is age? What is age? To us, age is like
wisdom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is age?
A gathering.
Age to me. I've got to come up with AGE. I've got to come up with some words for that, because
you did your FUN, didn't you?
When someone says to me, "Oh, how old are you?" I have to stop and think. Because Nicola and I are not in denial, because I think that's avoiding what is. As you said, we're born. I read somewhere you said you're born and then you get old. That is life, and then you die. But people that hone in on that, like, my God, they're levitating in it. Nicola and I
We've got decades ahead. We're just starting out.
Just don't put yourself in boxes. I think we do that. I think,
So you were saying, and
age is sort of like another box that you're sort of meant to fit into. And I've always been a bit of a punk in that way. And it's like, don't tell me how to think or what to do.
You're so cool, Kate.
But it's true, though. It's a fact.
Your age. You can sort of see also just from from the moment I met you too. It's just sort of like, and whether that does come with age, but that inner confidence, and that shines with you. So it's not just, like with your beauty, but it is, and sometimes it is the thing of, because, you are yourself, you're unique, you've got your own style, whereas sometimes it's, we've always learnt from being people pleasers when we were younger. It's taken us, as we've got older, to get to that stage. And it seems to be, that you sort of like have gone to the beat of your own drum really the whole way through.
Yeah, well, I think I used to live like that, but it's taken me an awfully long time to talk it. I've walked it, but I haven't talked it, and that's been this whole decade. And
speak up, speak loud, speak proud. Go,
It
Kate.
is. It is. It's like being seen and being heard. For a long time, sort of the purpose with modelling, you know, after I'd been in it for 2 decades, sort of I hit 40, and it was like all of a sudden I had a purpose for being there, which wasn't just, okay, it's a, you know, a pretty fun job and it takes me around the world and all of that sort of stuff. But now there's like a purpose for it, which is to sort of keep on sort of reminding women especially and men that life continues on and we shouldn't put ourselves in boxes. And yeah, so I started to write. And I think when I started to write, that was when I started to use my words. Use your words, Kate, you know? Yeah.
So you chose to live from the inside out, where a lot of the world is living from the outside in.
Yeah, which in some ways I think saved me as well, especially when I was young, because like we were talking
Tell us about that.
Downstairs.
Tell us about those early days too.
Yeah, so, you know, kid from the bush, riding bareback on a horse, like it was that. And then sort of, you know, 3 weeks later, I'm sort of starting to work and cast. And like at that time, you loaded your great big portfolio and you lugged it around and you went to sort of, you know, 10.
I remember them.
Yeah.
How old were you when you started as a model? Were you
18?
18. Okay, which is good.
Yeah.
Like some of them are 14, aren't they? 13, 14.
And I think mine was a conscious choice as well. Like sort of wasn't just plucked, which some girls do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so mine was a conscious choice, and I think that conscious choice has always sort of driven me. I don't know if it's something that, you know, I've inherited from my family, like my very stoic Russian mother or my, you know, very upstanding father, you know, but there's this like thing of like, oh no, I'm going to live my life and according to me. So you start modelling, and quite honestly, you're owned. You're owned. You're owned by the agency, because modelling is really about availability. You can look however you look, but someone else is always going to look just the same, you know, in the same category, because you are a product. You're not like this special thing. You're just a product. So, you just have to be available and you have to do what you're told.
How have the parameters changed from modelling back then to now? Give us some examples of back then in modelling. How it would never happen.
Especially early days for you as well.
Wow. So, you know, it was the late 80s and then all through the 90s. So there was
Sadly, I
lots
remember
of
those well.
I mean, it was well, it was a blur, but it was a very male-dominated time. Like we have to admit that, yes, women did start to pick up a bit of speed, but for the majority, it was men making decisions.
Especially in the modelling too, the agencies and everything too. It was all through the male lens, wasn't it? You know, a lot of who you get the job, because women weren't so much in those high
and the
powers.
Me Too thing certainly wasn't there. You did what you were told. You know, like I have told this story before, but went to a jeans casting for jeans, a television commercial for jeans, and it's like the guy that was doing the casting was the client, and he said, arrived, and then he said, take off your top and walk across the room.
For jeans?
For jeans.
And?
Yeah.
And what'd you do?
And you did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, because you're vulnerable. So, you want the gig.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think now younger models and whatever that just would not happen.
You
know, like that. It's just like now. And
I think I'm still in shock when men do inappropriate things. Yes. And I was only talking about it on social media the other day when, you know, I get this sort of male supermodel sort of I don't know, like groaning, looking at me with both hands on my shoulders and sort of going, you know, into my face. And I think, and I'm so you know, that I'm frozen, and then all of a sudden it's like, I think I've got to go to the toilet. You know? You know, because I think when that sort of stuff happens, I've never been the sort of fight back girl. I've been the frozen one.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we all react in different ways.
We do.
And I think it's just so interesting with, we're sort of saying, you know, Di was going, you know, with age, and I think a lot of things, times have changed now. Women, our voices are being heard, thank goodness, that way.
Yeah.
With age, a lot of times you do get more confidence.
Yes.
And it's sometimes you lose, and you don't really care what other people think. It takes you a long time to get to that stage.
Yeah.
But conditions have changed, thank goodness, and women are in power and positions equally. Like, we love that with men and women, but it's no longer that way, and it must have been even more difficult.
Yeah. So when you're frozen, I want to unpack that. How do you defrost after something like that?
Yeah, how do you defrost? It's good.
Well, I believe that when situations are done to us, we do know what it is, and so we carry that load. And we keep carrying it. I think those sort of emotions like feeling shame and feeling guilt, they start to sort of, become part of your burden that you carry, because you wish that you could have acted a different way, been stronger, because you knew it wasn't right. You knew...
Kate, you're so real because everyone has felt that, and everyone, and that's what living life on planet Earth is about.
And that's why we're doing what we're doing right now, to empowering ourselves, and on the way hoping that has a ripple effect, and we're empowering other women, like older, younger, whatever, around us.
What about modelling back in those days? For example, I remember those days very well because my sister, as you know, sister Wendy Heather, a lot of the models were told to lose weight. Oh, you're fat. Go away, lose weight, come back.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience that?
Yes.
Because I remember it very well. That
I got sent home in Germany.
You got sent home in Germany.
Arrived on a job and got sent home. Yep. Too big. They were really straight. Too big. Sorry.
So describe the scenario. You go in for a casting.
How old were you then, Kate?
Oh, maybe like 21, 22, something like that.
That must be so. You sort of think what it does for your mind.
Yeah. But look, in the high fashion arena, nothing's changed. I don't care what anyone says.
Interesting.
Nothing's changed. And I have sort of like, formed ideas about why that is, and I still think it's a male thing because I've always thought that a strong, powerful woman can overpower, but a very, slim sort of someone that's a little bit hungry and they won't be able to do anything much. They haven't got the energy for a start.
So when you got off the plane because they said that you were too big for the job.
Oh, no, go home from
what
the job.
What was the consequences of that? What was the
the
consequences of that? You're too big for someone telling you to your face.
Well, you just,
really?
For a good solid 7 years, I just tried to eat as little as possible. Yeah.
And I was always
fascinating. And I was always an athletic sort of girl. That's who I am. I love sports, and I love
and lean and like blonde and gorgeous, but wow. And that's what women and, I guess some men, in modelling career had to be subjected to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So tell us about that, about the consequences for that many years.
Look, so it's, I always find a silver lining. I'm a, glass full type of person. And what it really did was make me, at first it was difficult because it was like every single thing I monitored, like putting in my mouth, it wasn't counting calories or anything like that, but it was, is this going to be, any fat forming in any way? So all sugar and carbs and all that sort of stuff, like just cut from the diet. So in some ways it's like, okay, I've got to start, it's still sort of feeding myself, so I'll make better choices. Food that's going to fuel me. And that's carried on until today, and I eat very, very cleanly. And perhaps that's the reason why. I mean, it is also because of the whole yoga philosophy that you keep your vessel, keep your vessel clean.
Well, you turned it around then. You turned it something so negative around to something so beautifully positive.
I think that's life, though. You've got to do that.
Not for everyone.
No.
But we're all students of life.
I hate to tell you, not for everyone. Absolutely. What do we say? We're a work in progress.
So they may not have yet, but they've got time to do that. So, and you pick up different things and you learn along the way, and you learn from your biggest mistakes half the time as well.
And perhaps, I've been very lucky to come from the family that I did as well, where Mum cooked, nutritious meals, and we sat down every night to eat together as a family.
And so tell us about some of the highlights too. There must have been some glory days. When you've been sort of modelling for decades and you really have worked with some top brands. Just tell us, just tell us some of the good ones too. Like some of your faves.
Yes.
Some funny ones. This one's a hilarious one. It was on a little island off the coast of Auckland, and it's not Waikiki. That's Hawaii. But
I know the one.
Waikiki.
It is.
It's like another case somewhere. Yeah. It
gorgeous,
apparently
yes.
has 5 ley lines, 5 energy lines, the Earth's energy lines running underneath it. So, like, whatever that means, I'm not sure, but, something. And, we were all there on this big sort of German television commercial. There was a whole crew from Australia. They, brought in some dude from New York. Like, there was, model flown in from Paris. There was, the LA director. We were all from other places. And so we ended up doing this sort of, sort of casting over there because we were there, but we didn't have our roles and roles for us. And we all ended up sort of coupling up, and I coupled up with my co-star. So we ended up sort of having the sort of the lead, the feature or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And I honestly thought that he was the man of my dreams. Over the course of the week or whatever, we were, and our things was, we had to sort of snuggle together the whole time. And he was so incredibly beautiful at the time. And so I honestly thought, oh my God, it's him. He is my, it's him. It's my other half, whatever. And on the very last night, we wrapped before the end of the shoot, and everybody else there coupled up, including people that were married.
Back on those days.
The director and some of the cast, like it was all like
all
naughties everywhere. So everyone went a little bit crazy. And then the last night, the wrap night, we'd finished. They still had to work the next day, so this guy and I, and there were fire eaters and dancers and bonfires, and it was all on because it was, it was in the 90s, and it was like no expense spared, and it was this big wrap party. And so I ended up because we hadn't actually slept together, me and my co-star, and on that night, I don't know where he got he got ecstasy from, but he got ecstasy from somewhere. Anyway, so it was all slept with him. Was the worst possible sex I have ever had in my life. It was like I was a blow-up doll. It was like I was a blow-up doll.
No.
Yeah, just real used.
Wow.
Woke up the next morning, he is gone. He's gone. He's caught the early flight back to New York.
Wow.
Never saw him again.
Wow.
That was pre-internet, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought, and then boom, down, because I was discussing.
I don't blame you.
No, and the biggest high, and you've done this big thing here, and then you actually fall for the lead guy.
What
about life, though? Years go by.
Wow.
Decades go by, right?
I knew you'd follow through. I knew it.
Decades go by.
Come
I do
on.
actually meet the man of my dreams.
Yay.
I've just met him. I'm happened to be back in New York just 3 weeks after I do meet my darling Olivier.
Yes, yeah, beautiful.
And I'm in New York, and I'm scooting around downtown somewhere trying to find Ollie some shoes because, I want to buy him some sneakers and take them back as a present. And I literally run into, he's on his bike, this dude's on his bike, and we go,
Stop.
and we look at each other, and I go, I'm not going to say his name, and I go, oh my God, and he goes, oh my God, and we're talking maybe 25 years later, something like that, and he's turned into this sort of trolley looking everything that I'm not into at all. And he's actually the opposite of my darling Ollie, who's all blonde and And it was just like, oh my God, life is so funny.
Wow, what a
there was a reason for that.
It was that Waikiki energy.
Right.
It was like, some...
Gotta go, Nicola. You have some of that kooky energy.
Exactly. I don't want to meet guys like that.
Do you know what? Years ago when I lived in New York, I opened my car door in Broadway one day. Yeah. It was my potential mother-in-law's car. And guess, one of the guys cycling went into the door. Guess who it was? Christopher Reeve. And he abused me like I've never been abused in my whole life.
So bad.
Understandably. In a way, I was just up in my car door. And you...
He didn't have his cape on.
And I'm like going...
Did he have his
He
cape on?
didn't fly off out of the way.
Aren't you Superman? Can't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, can't you dodge me?
But all I did was go, oh, it's so lovely to me. He's going, how? And I'm going, oh, it's so lovely to meet you. I was so consumed by that. So it's just, you just triggered that sort of
just
my
these
mind.
bizarre things that happen in
Kate,
life.
that is incredible, but we're big believers or whatever with karma too, and sometimes you leave it to the universe, don't you, with sort of things that you go happily then with your own life. But it's interesting how you remember that, and what a story and a half.
Because I didn't know where you were going, because I thought, is she going to talk about the modelling? And I'm like, oh my God,
well,
she's with this
that
guy.
is a shoot that you're not going to forget, that's for sure. Wow.
Give us another one. I love stories like this. Give us something else that was like fascinating and interesting. And as Nicola said, one of the highs.
God, wow, put on the spot.
Who was a favourite designer that you've worked for too? Let's throw that into the mix.
Thierry Mugler.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Wow.
I did a runway show in Paris for Thierry.
For Fashion Week, or was it?
It
or
wasn't
for him
part
directly?
of Fashion Week. It was sort of like a show.
Wow.
And so he sort of pushed my boobs up into the, and really went with the sort of the curve.
Good.
Yeah.
Because you talk a lot about boobs weren't the go back then.
Yeah, no, boobs
And you had
still,
the boobs.
Boobs still aren't the go, and I am sort of rallying to bring the boob back.
Yeah. Look, I suppose
I'll help you. I've got enough before. Seriously.
Aren't we just starving?
I'm proud of it.
Aren't we thirsty
I
to
love my
see
boobs.
boobs?
Thurston's
I love them.
had the breasts.
So I'm just taking my my
Your
dry
bra
cleaning.
off.
Get comfy, Di.
Funny, Nicola, because I was filling my bra. I'm taking my dry cleaning label off, and she's taking a.
Talking about that, this one said you went to the beach today.
That
You
is
saw a lady
so
get her
funny.
gear off at the
Yeah,
Palm
no.
Beach and went for a nudie swim.
She went.
So I
She
think
just took her gear off.
It's all
and
happening.
went in front of his cafe and just went in for a swim.
Wow.
She was older, like in her 70s.
It's very European.
And you know, it's
very.
European, but I sort of went the older me went, or maybe the younger me actually. Let's rephrase that. Went, oh, that's so inappropriate. Then the older me went, how fabulous.
Yeah,
Go, girl. I flipped it around. Like that judgment about, for example, what we wear. Like Nicola knows my bloody outfits. You know, I'm a real, I'm mid-60s and I'm a Texan boot, sort of flowing dress sort of girl with a bit of boob, cleavage and whatever. And I seriously look in the mirror and I really like what I see. I never did for most of my life. I like what I see.
It's nice to own it now, isn't it?
And I go, you're rocking it.
Yeah.
I don't care about AGE. Do I feel good? Yes, I do.
Yep.
Thank you. And like Nicola, for example,
Exactly.
Nicola's from Melbourne. It says it all. She comes out. Nicola comes even in the morning. She'll have a little bit of lippy on, hair brushed. I'll have hair like from here
It's the
to
hosty.
Melbourne.
Touch up before you touch
She's
down.
always touching
Really,
up
just do a
before
little
she
touch
touches
up,
down. And she's always got a little bit of glitter. She's got the jewellery perfect, But
that's
Nicola
the
will rock
thing.
that till she dies. She'll be 120 and she'll be just like that.
But that
That's
is
her
the
look.
thing about sort of fashion and advertising. And I think
Right,
because it makes us feel. And it's part of the whole connection thing that you guys are on about, that I am too, that it's like clothes and accessories and, make me feel. That's why I wear what I wear. And I think that after a certain age, like especially because we've come through this sort of industry where we haven't seen more mature faces and bodies in fashion advertising, that I think a lot of women come out of sort of, the family situation and think, well, who am I? And have lost confidence in that whole thing of, do I look good like that? Or like that whole thing, is my bum too big? That still goes on in our age and stuff. Whereas the kids are like, get my bum bigger, like that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Why go? Why?
Yeah.
Bigger, why?
And I think just that thing of like when you were younger, you sort of maybe you tried things out and you didn't worry too much. You thought, oh, this will do. I sort of like this and I'll toss that on. And, and I think that a lot of more mature women have lost that sort of playfulness.
I love that. I love that word.
Fashion, accessories, that's what it is, isn't it? I mean, we play.
Don't you think now?
Remember dressing dolls when you were young?
Don't you think
dressing
now?
up, exactly.
Don't you think there's a real shift to it, and it makes me so happy. And I think it is by hearing those voices there. You know, we are seeing now older women who are rocking it. They might have like the bright red glasses on, or with the silver hair, and it might be a bit funky, spiky and
Xander Rhodes sort of thing.
But now the trend is, and so you're also a role model for that too, Kate. So you're out there working, and there's a beautiful woman when you're mid-50s, and it's so
late 50s.
Late 50s, wow.
Late 50s.
She's got the t-shirt rocking.
I've got a little skirt.
You're just cool.
And also you've got a real natural thing. What do you also think about, you are, like I was saying, a natural beauty, but also with the changes too of, with so much filler and Botox, and even younger ones with the lips and the lashes and the face.
I don't necessarily call myself a natural beauty because I think I've had a lot of experience in how to put myself together. Like...
Well, you're being humble, but I think you are. No,
let's be honest.
Come on, it's not like, you're not
beautiful.
You're not a poster girl for, but also for, but we're sort of saying, and there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with enhancers, but hearing what do you think about, especially with so many younger ones that have to get all the, with the fillers and the lips and
in order to like what they see in the mirror.
Yeah,
you're
look,
right.
if that's what they want to spend their money on, go for it.
Yeah.
But I personally would love to see them go out and maybe travel the world. And,
spend money on that.
Save your money and go do that. You know what I mean? I think it might, that, and maybe I'm, but I think as a sort of older woman, I reckon you might get more happy doing that, putting a little backpack on and getting your, whatever the equivalent of your Euro pass is
Remember
now.
those days?
Yeah, and going out and exploring and just sort of, leaving all that sort of surface stuff behind. See who you are.
Yeah, I guess it all comes with age and
experience. Explore yourself, explore the world.
Yeah.
And how do you find with sort of like now with jobs?
Because they're expensive, those bits and pieces.
The beauty industry is so huge. As soon as they pick up the phone or the television or a mag, whatever, it's massive, the beauty. So wherever you turn, it's there. But to make a conscious choice, my niece has just left to head for Europe, and I went, hallelujah, go and explore the world before you come back, settle in the career, get into a relationship, look in the mirror, say, who am I, what am I? Go and look, just like, it's great advice, actually. Particularly in Australia, we're this end of the earth.
And do it, and you know what, and do it at any age, in any stage,
Well,
so I sort of think too, it's great when you're younger, and I think it's great at any stage, just if you got, get the chance.
Yes.
Just do it.
And on that note, a couple of years back,
Lucky Ed. Who was in that, Kate?
Exactly. My sister was telling me about, because I was on my way to Europe, and my sister was telling me about how some of her friends, because she's 2 years older than me, some of her friends stayed in hostels all over Europe. And that's what switched me on to hostels. And so I have been staying in hostels each time I travel in Europe. And I tell you what, it's women. It's women our age, single women travelling by themselves or younger families. Because where else are you going to stay, honestly, if you're just sort of a family?
On a budget,
and and you've got a couple of kids. And, I just think hostels have had a whole sort of
revamp. Yeah. I agree.
Refresh, rebrand.
I went on hostels on my honeymoon. We did a 3-month honeymoon, but we just went hostel.
Fantastic.
And you know what I remember most about it?
Yep.
Was meeting people.
Yes.
And hotel room, you close the door, bang. Yes, you can go down to the bar.
Yeah.
But hostels are very open. I call it like open air.
Yeah.
Hi, where are you travelling? Where have you been?
Exactly.
That's what I used to say to you. Flying, in the
Because I
olden
flew,
days.
as you know, for like 30-something years, so it was always, that was fun. But, so, I think it's a great thing to travel, just get out there. But tell us more about, like, your inner world and what really got you into sort of like with your yoga and that sort of real self love, and tell us a little bit about that, Kate.
So I think as a child I was sort of left alone a little. Like we had a 5-acre property and we just sort of ran free and wild. And Mum and Dad were the type of parents that sort of just let us go, let us, and we'd be gone from morning till night sort of thing.
Do you remember that? Mum, I'm home.
Yeah.
Okay, darling, she's still storing, not even asking you. You've been gone all day. Now that would never happen.
Well, you're tracked.
No.
Never.
They've got tracks on the kids and stuff.
Exactly. They've got a tracker on you. Yeah.
So I think that sort of, keyed into how important trees are. And how important the earth is, and like being in those environs and how that makes you feel has always been really important to me. Not even important, but it's part of life. I often think that if you spoke more to trees and spent more time in trees, you'd be a better person.
With what's going on in the world at the moment, more than ever, if anyone's listening who's got anxiety around it, go walk into a forest, a park, whatever.
Exactly.
Or by the beach, or just fresh air.
Mother Nature. Just Mother Nature.
Exactly.
You were saying when you walk the dog, that feeling.
It is.
You know, you can't beat it.
Yep. So I think that was how I grew up. And then I've always been interested, like a big human sponge, in things that are like metaphysical and magic. And it's not that was what Mum and Dad and my siblings are into or whatever. I just came out like that, And even at like 13, I rode away to the I don't know, what, philosophical society or something or other, and they used to send me newsletters, and I'd, and there was a magazine called Nexus.
I remember.
Yes, do you remember Nexus? And it had weird tripping things and UFOs and like anything, and I just loved it all. I believed it all, and I still believe it all, and I still love it all, But then, I used to sort of trek into the city, and I'd do that, and I found Adja Bookshop. I don't know if you remember Adja
My sister
Bookshop.
Wendy used to go there all the time.
It was like a Harry Potter library,
Yes,
and you'd go
The
down
Game
the
of Life
stairs.
and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. That's a book from that store. Do you remember that book?
No, but I need to read that.
Incredible bookstore.
Right, and it was like,
Imagination again, isn't it?
It really was, So somehow or other, I picked up BKS Iyengar's Light on Yoga, which is still one of the sort of Bibles of yoga, worldwide. So that book became my sort of constant companion. And I think I was about 16 when I first bought it. And then I started modelling at 18, and I'd already started to teach myself out of the book. And about a third of the book was yoga philosophy. And it was just so delicious, this yoga philosophy. I'd just read a page and sort of take it in, and then the rest of it was like how to do the bend and stretch and all of that sort of stuff. So I start modelling, and I've got to keep my weight down, and I've got to be fit, and, yoga just, I stuck at yoga. The big reason that I think I stuck at the yoga asana was vanity, because I'd get up the next morning, I'd think, butt's got a bit of a shape, legs look good, like,
very healthy. That to me was healthy.
Yes. Well,
I look good. I'm doing
vanity.
this is working.
Pure vanity.
So but that's good. That's healthy.
I stuck onto, clung onto it, and it became like, all the pages had fallen out, and I'd wrap an elastic band around it, or a ribbon, or whatever, and it travelled with me everywhere. So in the beginning, it was big travelling time, sort of. 19, I was in New York. I'd never flown on a plane before. Went to New York, I know. And one day,
straight to the Big Apple.
Out walking, it was like, oh my God, this is snow. Never been to the snow before, because we didn't go on big holidays as a family. We had like camping holidays, very humble sort of childhood, and so I'd never been in the snow, and but a very nonchalant at the same time, 19-year-old. Oh yeah, I'm here in New York.
And how did they sort of
exactly?
Would you
I'm here
draw
modelling.
on that inner sort of like the things that you would learn?
I love that
in yoga, or sort of like those disciplines. And did that help centre you even when you were younger?
It's a great question, because I'm just thinking she's working in a beauty-oriented world, which can be harsh, and you're maintaining this yoga,
this inner, which is philosophy. Did that help you when you were younger, or did you get into it deeper when you were older?
Yeah, so there were two worlds. There was the yoga me and the model me, and I still call it, call it the model me, but they've merged now. They've sort of integrated. But
love that.
The yoga me hung out in yoga studios with sort of bit fusty, sort of all a bit sort of imbued imbued with incense and women that didn't shave their armpits and and all of it like that, and they weren't in any. And of course, I would never say I was a model, because even at that time it was like, you're a dumb model. You're a dumb model.
That's fascinating.
That's true. It was a bit condescending a little bit too. It's sort of like, she's just a model. Beauty and no brains, which is just like absolutely ridiculous.
And then being blonde, did you get the dumb blondes?
Of course. Oh, you would have.
Incredible.
Exactly.
Of course. Absolutely.
Putting you in a box.
How fascinating that you maintained that, through that mad, crazy modelling world.
But then I'd see some poster or something somewhere, and it would have something about acupuncture or some sort of, light therapy, and I thought, oh, great, I'll go and do that.
Wow.
So, and that's what I did.
Drawn to it.
Yes. Always.
She had the light switched
on.
on.
Incredible. Yes. And has that helped you sort of throughout your life?
Yes. So I think aside from modelling, I think that the whole yoga and keeping myself nice and keeping myself in some sense balanced was really great when I started partying.
Good point.
Because
modelling
is also partying.
Very much so.
And then all of that whole thing just
especially
went
all around the world.
And particularly New York in those days.
And New York, like all around the
Studio
world,
54.
and it's all laid on for you.
Not that old, but
But
along those lines, I wish I'd been Studio 54.
New York, it's very different now, I find.
I always joke
back then, party central.
And I always joke that I've danced in discos and lain on beaches all around the world.
That's a great. She's a girl.
Exactly. I know.
We're loving you more and more.
But then at 35, I was tragic because I'd done it for too long.
And then it's got to be something else.
Tell me what hit you at 35, Kate.
Okay, so lying there in a studio apartment in New York, I've been here and there and everywhere and back in New York, and I've got a bed and some clothes. And I've got a little place here, so I've sort of done a little flip back and forth, and I'm lying there thinking, okay, Kate, you're getting a bit tragic.
Right.
And I just...
Good recognition, though.
Just said, what do you want, Kate? Because I still talk to myself.
It's important.
I think it's very healthy.
Now I talk to myself.
Self-reflection too.
I love it.
Yeah. And I said, well, what do you want, Kate? And I just said, I want better friends, and I want better relationship with my family, and I need to go home and start teaching yoga properly.
Wow.
So I think it was like
Bam.
I think it was like a Monday or a Tuesday. I was gone by Friday.
So you gave yourself a self-talk, or where it came
Amazing.
from.
Was it meditation, or was it just a cake? What are you doing?
I just think that you can't do all the yoga and all of that sort of stuff without sort of deepening your awareness in yourself and not shying away from things that are uncomfortable, because that's what, when we do the bending and the stretching, it's like, oh, that feels good, but if I do it anymore, my knee's going to pop.
Yes, yeah.
And so you've got to walk that fine line between this is actually good for me to go through a little bit of discomfort so that, my knee can actually get stronger. And so we do that with ourselves. So we do that with ourselves. All the little ways that we perhaps didn't get the love that we needed, or we've and I sort of think, and there's no reason to think it, but I like to think it. And we choose our parents, and they loved us in the way that they could. And that's what we've chosen, the way that they've loved us. And some of us, perhaps, I don't know about you, but some of us perhaps got pretty lucky with, we weren't sort of, really hard things didn't happen. So if that was the case, then all my heart goes out to people that have bigger things to deal with than I ever did.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's good that you've got the gratitude
35 is
for
a
that
really
too.
good turning point.
But it's interesting too. Yeah, that's
fascinating.
That's fantastic. And so from there on, really, Kate, you've sort of then really like drawn on that, and then you know it's a great word saying you can change your life at any age and stage of your life, and sometimes it just hits you, and whether it is from that work that you've done before, and so you've really done that shift, and then you've
it could be a tickle.
Could be a tickle,
and then you expand on that.
Yes, exactly. Or that little
and
thing there.
then I think the people around you, you know, your little sort of support system. Yes. And I think you get better at choosing that support system.
You're really finding yourself, aren't you?
And then as you get older, and I think that's the beauty of getting older, because the team that you have around you, they're good.
Yes.
You know, they just build you up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking Alice, that's just wonderful.
See, that's our, and
Yeah.
I think what Nicola just said, you're speaking our language because we're about connection. Connection, which is lacking in our world. And I slam it and I repeat it, don't I, over and over. Because we all need the reminders. Oh, no, it's
easy to say no. And sometimes you need
no,
to.
I'm fine.
You need to have
I don't like the word fine.
Yes.
Because you're not. Reach out, text, phone, walk out into the community, get involved. Connection.
Yes.
You know, like,
or your girlfriend
God, if I
goes,
didn't have Nicola,
don't be ridiculous. Come on, we're going out.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
Grab your coat, we're going
out. And you're in the car honking, you know? Oh, damn, I've got to go now. You're so right. Literally get their hair and drag them. Oh, all right. You know?
And I think it's sort of like that, you know, like it's all the balance in life too, because then you do know sometimes that you do need that time to pause, you need that time to sort of like that. And I love that we were sort of saying with yoga and stretching, it's like you stretch. We all need to stretch ourselves sometimes, we're saying with that comfort. And I love that, nice, Kate. It really is, because it's those times when you do stretch yourself outside that comfort zone.
Yeah.
You look back and go, that's where growth happens. You know,
it's true.
It's when you do, isn't it? Yeah.
Really
also, doing something like, you know, for the first time, it can be scary, but actually doing it, what can go wrong? Who cares?
Yes.
Just done it. And F-ups are the biggest things where you learn from.
And that first little go, you know, and that's how our brain works. I know I was listening to another podcast of yours, she was talking about the, you know, the neuroplasticity of the brain. So, you know, one little neural pathway, and then the next time you do it, that firms up a little bit, and it firms up a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. And, you know, and I think we grow into ourselves. We grow into the people that we're always meant to be. If we just let ourselves, if we get out of our way, and you know, things can be scary to think about ourselves. Like, and you can feel so, you know, the things that I've done, the places that I've gone. It's just like, sometimes the shame would, you know, and the shame and the guilt, and there's such emotions that do us no service whatsoever. And consciously we know that. And so it's like, okay, I'm just going to feel it anyway, because I just want to sort of think about, you know what I mean? Like, I did that. Okay, yep, I did that. And then
give yourself a little pat on the back.
But it also makes you the person you are. Like, I look back at my good and bad. I wouldn't be who I am without that. And so I own it and I love it.
Yes.
And I don't have a baggage of it. I know it's who I am. It's what I am. And what I present to the world now is all the good and bad. You know, so I don't now. I used to. God, let me tell you, I used to. Is that I don't hold on to the negativity anymore. I go, hey, it happened. Thank God it did. Because I learned from that.
And as Jane Fonda says, they're just the. Did you see? I did.
We talked to all of our listeners there as well too. At Jane Fonda, it was fantastic.
She said that all of these things that we do are just like, you know, responses to trauma, like previous trauma, and so we play out the trauma.
Yes.
And you know, at some point you got to go, you know, it's okay. It's okay that you did that. It's okay that, you know what I mean, you responded in that way. Next time, let's do better. Next time, let's not hurt ourselves so much, and we'll do it a different way. You know, because I think all the things that we do that we aren't so great, they're sort of self-harm. They harm us first before the other person.
Absolutely. Let alone in a relationship, because you both bring trauma. So it's about trying to work, you know, navigate your way through that. That's another story altogether. But if at least least one's coming in without the trauma, you're in a better
Jane
position.
Fonda, I thought, was so good too, because it was quite funny. I think Liz Hayes in Sydney was actually interviewing her, and then when she was asking, she even said to her too, tell us about your love life, and then I loved it, and Jane said, I've shut up shop, and then she said, you know what the good news is? I don't have to pretend anymore.
Yeah. And the whole, were you there that
night? Everyone roared with
the whole
laughter. It was so funny. We were just going, go Jane,
It speaks 1,000 words. But what is she? She's 88.
And you bump into them 25 years later in New York,
and she's like in total, she's in, I don't like the word control, but she is open about who and what she is.
Yep.
And when I say open, not afraid to share or say anything. Yeah. And to me, you feel that energy. Someone walks past you like this and you go... Yeah. But when you walk past like that, and honestly, I don't even like the word age, but as you progress through life, become more open about who you are. Almost like I said to someone the other day, it's like we're a little bud that's slowly unfolding. And then I think you get into your 50s and your 60s, 70s, 80s, it's like the flower has balloons.
Exactly.
And it's flying in the wind, and you nurture it and feed it with some wine, and water.
Lisa McGuigan,
Lisa McGuigan. You know what I mean?
I was saying to Nicola on the phone.
Yes.
And look, I just want to talk about, I think it's on the same vein of thought, is ageism. Because the word I find fascinating, tell us about the ageism that you were raging against.
So I've stopped raging quite so much because I got it out. I used my words and I got it out.
There's a lot of listeners now that probably are in that holding pattern.
So it's all the things that we've been talking about, the fact that we haven't seen mature women in fashion advertising because of the male lens and because we sort of continue to think, that's how things are done. Well, yeah, things can change. So
and they are. Woo.
Yes, they are. And so I hit around my late 30s and I was because I didn't have kids, I think I kept with modelling. A lot of women my age, my peers at the time, leaving to have kids. And like I said when we first started, that modelling is about availability. So I was always, yes, I can. So I'm in the UK modelling through the world's first mature model agency. And and I just had, and it was work was good. It wasn't every day, but it was like enough to keep me and And I was still a working model at 39, and it hit me one day in the shower that this is
again. These shower moments.
I tell you, this is not going to end. It's not going to end. It's not going to end until I say it's going to end.
Yay.
And so I just visualised myself, I'm going to surf this thing. And I came back into Australia with that mindset of like, okay, I'm here and I'm a professional model and I'm 40 or okay, I'm 42. And around that age, I started getting direct bookings from the fabulous American company Gap. They'd started a line called Athleta.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I had worked for Gap before years ago in the States and stuff, but they started a sort of an activewear line, and they booked me as a yoga teacher. Yeah, not even as a model. And suddenly my two worlds collided.
I love that.
Two worlds collided.
But you created that.
That's like Stephanie Lefevre, who's all into manifesting and mindset. Do you remember that? She sort of said both her worlds collided, to get, with her Mind Valley and this other one, and all of a sudden it came together.
Yeah.
And so it's like for you with the travel and
but you believe.
with the modelling, and it's
and it was
unconscious.
so fantastic. They just brought me back to life in the modelling way because I was like, we went to these fabulous places and it was fabulous trips and it was all just super, and suddenly my life was unreal. Like I'm going everywhere all over again, and I'm and that was also the beginning of the activewear movement.
Yes.
We
love activewear.
And Lululemon was huge. I think that's a Canadian brand.
We love
everyone was
stretch
sort of in that
fabrics.
We
really love them. I love
comfortable.
them.
Yeah. But then I'd sort of other than that, and and I do a few beauty things and whatnot, but. The fashion that I was wearing, we won't even call it fashion because it wouldn't be even anything that my, mum would poke a stick at. She, and so why do I have to wear the elasticized jeans on a jean shoot? Like, you know, what are you saying? What are you saying that, you know what I mean? I can't wear the skinnies. And, you know, I'm in these great big balloon
but they
things.
put you in that, would
balloons
they?
are fine if that's what you're into. Oh, yeah.
I didn't realise that they would. They'd actually dress you like that at that stage. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
I'd say, what are you paying me? Yeah, sure, whatever.
I mean, I was doing, in my 40s, I was doing like, you know, incontinence pads. I was doing, seniors.
Show me the money.
Seniors home ads.
And
like,
she hasn't even grown up, and she's doing all that.
And I'm in my 40s, and it sort of went on, and then on shoots where it was like a nicer budget and you know, a bigger crew and stuff, I'd be the sort of the one where they wouldn't know how to light, and I'd get the assistant makeup artist. I wouldn't even get the makeup artist. Like I'd just be in the chair because they didn't want to do you. You know, they wanted to do the you know, the new young thing that sort of was like they were all sort of enamoured with her face or whatever. And so, it really started to like, oh my God, this is actually happening. This is what's called, this is ageism. And it's the last sort of ism that I think that needs to be kicked out of the room.
Whoa,
And
loving this.
And it's the tail end of feminism. I think it is.
Yes,
like, you know, to say that older women aren't as important as younger women. Yes.
And is this changing now, Kate? Are you seeing, because I mean, you're talk about walking the walk, you're walking it now and talking
Well, I've sort of moved through that ageism because things are changing. I think Australia's doing excellently at it.
What about with Tara
really
Brumfitt, to Australian of the Year, and we've had her on the podcast as well, of doing, you know, of all, like actually embracing all shapes and sizes as well.
Yep, and Australia's doing really well with that too. So, we are doing well,
Because I also think during that phase I read where you said, I did not view my changing face with kindness. I would forever rip myself apart. That's an amazing statement because I'm seeing, I get these visuals, I'm seeing you in that chair and they go, you wait, the assistant's coming. Well, you're used to being like, over here, Kate. And they're like, could you move Kate 2 feet down to the left?
And it's all the setup with the lights. It's like, can you look over there? Can you keep your head up? Can you keep your head up? And it's just like...
demoralising, really.
Just freaking like me.
Do you know what I want to do? I want to let the listeners that haven't heard the word ageism want to say. This was Nicola's boyfriend, ChatGPT. A company refusing to hire someone over 50 despite their qualifications. Doctors attributing symptoms to just ageing without proper diagnosis, and or media portraying seniors as helpless and out of touch. I mean, it's just an example of what we're talking about when we say the word ageism. You know, it's a broad spectrum of so many different areas. And look, it's great to hear Kate's experience, you know, in that scenario. And even Nicola was going, really? Like, how surprising.
Well, images shape us, like, you know, media shapes us, shapes our minds.
They have like 13, 14-year-old girl, you know, models who are, you know, brides and... You know, I remember when my son was, you know, he got sort of plucked out or something, he was still at school, he probably doesn't want me to tell him this, but, you know, he actually was, you know, did a modelling gig for this suit thing, they wanted him. And he was a schoolboy and played the groom. And he's in posters and he was the thing there. He was like the groom and Harrison. Sorry, Harrison, but he looked gorgeous, but he was
This is
ridiculous.
a great time for a shout out.
Exactly.
I'd love to do a bridal shoot. Hey, can I please do a bridal shoot?
I know.
You know, 57
Yes,
and do a
that's
bridal
right.
shoot. Because why not?
Well,
why haven't we seen a mature woman in a bridal shoot?
Seriously.
Ever.
Well, now there's shows on TV. There's the Golden Bachelor. There's those ones for older people, and you know, we're all about celebrating, you know, age at any stage. But you know, I love seeing that what you're doing. I think it's really great that you're speaking up. You're living it. You're a living example of, you know, keeping on, and also calling it out. And I really do think things are changing. Thank goodness. And you know, but it's good to call things out in all different areas.
I'm so glad you just said your age, because I meant to ask that up front. I know you're quite okay with saying you're 57.
I'm 57 in August.
What star sign are you?
Leo monkey.
Oh,
Leo Monkey. Yahoo.
Yeah. Oh, Leo Monkey.
Leo Monkey.
Hello, Wendy's a monkey.
Yeah, now that I really embrace that,
Don't
it's
you love
okay,
that?
Kate,
I love
but
it.
you
The
know,
Leo
like-
Monkey. That's so cute.
See, guys,
I'm an
look at
Aries
us.
dragon. Aries
Nicola's rocking
dragon.
it.
I'm double Aries too.
And are you ready for it? I'm a Capricorn rooster.
I know. Look at this
And
rooster.
monkeys
Isn't it
protect
cute?
roosters. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
I know. It's so, you can't even see them like you're protecting a rooster.
Don't you love it? We go from one thing to the
I
other.
love us.
Star signs
You know
like
what?
that. It's so
I love
good.
us. I love us because of who, what we are.
Any last minute tips for our listeners who sometimes might be feeling sort of like, dealing with either whether it's ageism or lack of self-confidence or sort of feeling a bit rejected because they're sort of like no longer. What do you say, Kate? Any tips from you?
I do think, like Jane Fonda, that movement is just so important for a better, a happier mind. And I must say that when I'm busy, I'm good. I can keep a balance with like the sort of the downtime things that help me stay on top, and then the busyness where I'm engaged and involved. And I think that perhaps that some women that are lacking confidence, it's because they're not engaged and involved as perhaps they'd like to be. And maybe that's as simple as going out for a walk and then engaging in conversation with other people. And then social media, I mean, people really damn it and stuff, but if you use that as sort of a conduit to share your thing. I used the term with Nicola the other day that you get your groove.
Get your groove, I like that.
In your 50s. You know your groove. You know what you like, what you don't like so much. Because you might be at home doing your little sewing thing or doing your thing, your groove. And so I think really dig into that groove and make it groovier, and because you do.
You are cool, Kate. You're the ultimate.
And then
cool
share that groovy thing that
love
you
that.
do.
You know what? Sharing, it's connection. What you talked about at the start with
it's
phones.
unique to you.
Wow,
it is.
And I'm glad you brought that to the fore about social media, because there's good in social media too.
It's
just about monitoring and not abusing
balance, like
it.
everything in life, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's like partying. We like to party. We like to. But I also like.
You saw us the other night, Kate.
Yeah,
we hate to party, right?
But also,
I
do.
with
I
it.
then go. I need my time to myself as well. It's like that balance. Like that time I walk that dog.
That was a great question, Kate. You know why? The question A, but B, her response, movement.
Yes.
And someone's at home now listening going, I couldn't be bothered. Really?
Yep.
Walk to the shops, don't drive.
Stick your potties
let
on.
us
take the animals for a walk.
But just get out the door.
And also, we want to hear from you, listeners.
Grab the neighbour's dog.
What's
Take
some
that
of your
for
tips
no
and tools?
excuses.
I'd love to really hear, listeners, let us know, because I love hearing your stories.
We love
and
the
it's
DMs.
really good. So, let
we
us
love
know.
the feedback.
Well, I think that we're going to sort of, time is getting away here.
Well, I'm going to keep wearing my
She's
cowboy
wearing her
boots.
cowboy boots, exactly.
Oh my God, I can't get my
They're beauties. They're lovely.
in Mykonos, actually.
Did you now?
I love
So I'm
it.
going to rock those forever.
Yep.
In fact, in my casket,
They're
I
your
said,
groove-
make
they're
sure I'm
part of
wearing
your groovy thing.
Exactly. It's my groove.
So as Kate says, do you?
Yes.
It's just been such a joy having you. We've got a couple of our signature questions. Did you want to shoot Daddy?
Why not? Okay, what makes you happy?
Oh, so I did think about this, and I sound very traditional, but my partner Olivier makes me happy.
How long have you been together for?
And it sounds really like like my mother's era or whatever, but he honestly has been such a.
How many years together?
22.
Wow,
yeah.
that's beautiful.
And so much of what I do is to really care for him. So because I really love when he's thriving, and he loves when I'm thriving.
That's healthy, isn't it?
And he really did swoop into my life and give me a safe space to be. He was the sort of, I feel like he was the first man ever in my life to really sort of create a safe space. Yeah, because is he
younger than you?
As a little me floating around the world, I really needed that.
Yes,
So he did that in a really nice, most beautiful way. So he makes me so happy.
Is he younger than you? The only reason I repeat.
He's 6 years younger than me.
Oh, that's nice.
He's still
No, I was just reading some about your timeline with your love life, Charles.
Yeah.
So next
that's
question,
really that's really beautiful hearing that too. So, if you could share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth, who would it be? Kate Bell, and why?
Yeah, I'm dying to know this.
The Dalai Lama.
I don't think of that. Of course.
Oh, yeah.
What would
We'll
you say
definitely
to,
be
what would you
there.
say to him? Or
Look, I'd love to meet him every day down at the back fence.
Meditate.
Yeah.
And just be in his sort of realm, because I do believe that there's a small amount of people still on the earth that just by them being here keep the sort of balance of our humanity, and he is definitely.
And he loves to have fun. That's why I adore him.
He does.
He's always having a
He's
giggle.
cheeky and fun.
You know what?
and
You can meet some of those spiritualists,
Yes,
like they're so serious all the time. And yes, they've obviously got a lovely message to preach, but God, they don't get the joke. To me, that is life. You know, he's always giggling.
You
The
got to lighten up.
He's light. He is light. And that whole
And just
dark
a quick
and
one,
light.
because we've talked about ageism too, so I really want to sort of get this back to what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh, cheer up.
Cheer up.
Lighten up. Lighten up.
You were the middle child, though, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh well, Kate, thank you so much for coming on. There's just so much.
I loved it.
You know,
Do you know, it's like having a coffee with a girlfriend.
Oh, totally.
That's how I felt today.
It always is. When I listen to your podcast, it always is.
And we go from
that's
one
why
way
we
to
love
the
you.
other.
That's why we love you both.
Oh, thank you so much. Well,
This
Kate,
is a
thank you
love
so much for
fest.
coming on.
No, but that's what it was like the other night at your event.
Oh, well.
We just loved you so much.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, you know, we've always sort of said that we do love people, but we're saying everyone's got a story, and it's really important to hear people's stories, and you know, you can learn from them, and you know, you share stories, and that's sort of what it's all about. So, thank you for coming on, and everyone, thank you for listening, and don't forget to rate and review. We are on YouTube.
We love you coming
please
to us over the back fence.
and also check us out, because we have got this Lisa McGuigan wine, which with our label on, which is we are going to have a really special offer.
It's got a cute little pic of the girls.
It's got a picture of us here.
It does.
Now, Di likes her own
We actually,
ratings.
someone just bought it, so I don't have it in the studio.
No, that's right. We've even actually got some Jeroboams as
That is
well.
so
But we've got, I think, in the Shiraz and, you know, and the
God,
Pinot
I love
Gris.
it.
But now Dottie has her own ratings. Now we've got Kate Bell.
Yes, guys, do you know how to rate? It's quite easy, isn't it? It's
yes.
on Apple, and you
on over
scroll
them.
down. Because I read them, and they're so cool, some of the ratings, what they
and
say.
reviews,
So I think it's
How
out
many
of
stars?
5.
Five
Out of
stars,
5, without a doubt. She is so rocking it at 57. It's got to be 57 out of 5.
Yeah. You are rocking it. I think you're the coolest one we've
Leo,
ever
though.
had. Thank you, Kate, so
Love
much.
you.
Yeah. Ciao,
Thank you
ciao.
so much.
Thanks for listening,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.